Yeah, what's the problem? No, I haven't told the audience what colour we're doing yet. It's going to be a surprise, okay? All right, you go back to sleep and let me get some more work done. Welcome to DMOT Garage. We are on the 54 Barndoor single cab. This is a project that I'm building from the ground up for the newcomers. Go back through the playlist and you can check it all out. For the regulars, let's see what's been going on during the week. As you can see, again, they're just mocked up. I've just put the floor sheets on, the top cargo sheets, whatever you want to call them, just to make sure everything was square and good, which it is. So we're going to rip these off now. We've done a lot of measurements just to make sure that things were square. We've put all three gates on, made sure the swage lines all line up, and we can now weld on these side pieces, get them all put in. Then we can also start to cut the ribs. Now these do, I think I've got quite a few extra ones of these, and they are a bit rusty. They'll need to be cleaned up, but they do fit. So I was a bit worried in the last episode we had some issues with clearances, but it all seems to work out pretty good so far. One thing I didn't show everybody was obviously the transmission hump is for a later model. Now you can see the VIN number is here, and this area here on both sides had to be modified to make it look like a Barndoor transmission hump. So I've got that all sorted, which is good. I think everything under here is A-OK now, so we're going to start just welding these back frame, or all the side frames on basically. Now, what we're doing, we're working on this side, and you know, look, everything, we got the other side pretty much sorted. We had to do the same issue here where this pylon that I'd made, when I welded it in, it just warped out about 3 mils. So of course the gap wasn't correct. So I had to, you know, give it a very slight cut down here and then push it to where I wanted it and then weld it back up again. You can see this bottom part here, we're going to have to refix this up because it doesn't line up with the bottom of the lower sill. Now, where I've gone and clecoed this sill is where it's got to go. So if you have a look, I'll just put this door down. You can see our gap here is good, and our gap along the bottom is also good, and our gap over here is also good. But we do have some problems, and I'm not sure exactly what has happened here, but I'll just show you. You can see this and this are not marrying up. You've got a bit of an indiscrepancy there, about 2.5 mil. This is up against the sill behind. That's up against the sill behind, but you can see they're not playing ball at all. So we're going to have to do some fandangling to get that level, because you can't have it like that. It just looks terrible. And yeah, so I'm not sure. Same deal with the front. I was trying to think about measurements and stuff. Now the sills inside have to go against the chassis, so they can't change. So I've got a feeling, again, we've got Schofield, I think, is this black stuff, or Brazilian, I'm not sure, BBT, and I don't know what the inside one might be, Gerson. So, you know, you've got all these different companies and they're not all perfect. So you have issues like this that you've got to sort out, and people crack it and say, oh, you know, the panels are no good and they don't fit. It's like, well, you know, they're not going to fit perfectly. This is the sort of thing you will get. So yeah, we're going to have to sort this out. I'm just trying to work out. I can't push this any deeper because it is, you know, if you have a look here, it is actually touching inside. In there you can see where it's touching the inner seal. So that panel can't go any further in. So I'm thinking what I'm going to have to do is either cut this along here and along here and bring this panel slightly out so that it's level with that. I have rotated this out as far as I can get it, but maybe it has to come out further. It might. Anyway, that's the sort of dilemma that we're facing. But apart from that, I've got it drilled here, ready to plug weld on the top of the sill. And of course the bottom of the sill will just get spot welded along the seam at the bottom here. So, and of course, yeah, this problem over here, this hasn't married up nicely at all. And again, because this was handmade, so the shape just wasn't quite right. So I've gone and cut that, so that I'm going to have to cut it through here too, just to get that angle a little bit better, and so that it matches this. So a little bit more stuffing around. Once this is done, and we've got a couple of internal baffles to put in for where the fuel tank's going to go, and there's a couple of sections across the top there, then the ribs here can get well, I'm going to, like I said earlier, we're going to paint the floor. These guys are all painted. I just put some primer on those. And then we are going to have to go on to corners, rear corners. They have to get put on. And then we also have the engine lid. And the engine lid, as you saw in the previous video, that needs a lot of work. So there's a lot of welding and repairs on that. Getting there slowly. Well, let's continue just fandangling these little corners.
A few moments later.
Okay, so we've just done a little bit more fandangling on this section here, and we've got that nice and level now. We've just brought this out a bit further, so I think we are good. These gaps here line up nicely, so this guy's ready to weld in. Everything else is looking good. We do have to add a little piece just here because I did have to flex this out. And so we just got to weld on another little tab at the bottom here. All right, we'll go and fire up the welder, and we can start working on these little corners. We've got some plugs to do along the top here, and on the back side we'll put the spot welder on it and get that sorted. So this sheet here, we'll take this sheet here back off again. This one's just been held on with 2 Clecos here, only because we have to add the fuel, this part here. This little guy here needs to be for the fuel neck. So that gets welded on in here. That way, sorry. Goes like that. So yeah, we'll go and put him on before we actually get that permanently on. I think for now we'll just get the bottom sill done and just fix up that little corner. Right. Okay, we'll do some plug welding. Right. Flap these suckers back quickly. We'll get the spot welder next and come in underneath here and just do the underneath section. Should be able to get that no problem. We've just got to make sure that you've got no paint on this lip here. Okay, let's see how we go here. Works good, but it's bloody heavy. Okay. Down this end. that off. Okay, that part's done. And let's double check this. Yeah, beautiful. That's what we want. Nice even gap. Looking good. Okay. We can just finish off this little repair here. This little part here, I've just got to add a little flap and then spot weld it back to that. And then that part is good to go. Right. Okay, so we have this little section finished off and we've got a nice even gap all the way around now. That's put in, that's fixed. Next we've got to do this back panel, and let's get this fuel bizzo put into position and then we can continue. So I think what we'll do is take this off because it's only Clecoat on, and set it up on the bench out here, and then we can quickly weld it. Okay, so we're going to just drill some holes in here and then we can plug weld it. And it basically sits on, there's some screws there, and that's for the, oh yeah, okay. So yeah, it basically just goes like that, that's it. So we can, I don't know if we can get in there to plug weld that. Maybe not. Well, we can do one on the edge here, one on the edge there, and a couple of, well, we can spot weld that. Can we get the spot welder in here? I don't think so. Geez, it'd be good if we could. Might just try that, see if we can. If not, we'll have to just tack it on the outside, which I don't really want to warp the panel. So this one, no problem. We can definitely tack, spot weld that. I don't think we're going to be able to do this. No. Let's see how we go.
2,000 years later.
Okay, so unfortunately we couldn't use the spot welder because the metal's too thick along here, so I ended up just punching some holes and plug welding it. So it's done. That's what it's going to look like, and we can do a bit of a trial fit. We're not going to mount these rear panels yet because they're kind of going to get in the way to do a bit more painting, because, you know, I can just get in here now and I'll be able to access this section here to get some paint on. So yeah, I think that's sort of it for, we can probably start putting these center dividers in for the fuel tank. Yeah, we'll get onto that next, and then once that's done, then we're going to start preparing for putting an undercoat color on the inside of it, and then after we've done that, then we can start with the side back panels, get those welded on, and we'll probably use a bit of panel bond on these, because this section here, you can plug weld that, but it just creates a whole lot of distortion in the panel, and then obviously more body work later. So I think for those sections, we're just going to use panel bond. I've got the high strength Sikaflex 257, I think it is. So we might use that for that area. All right, well, we're going to start doing some cleaning up now and pack up a bit of these tools and start getting ready for some primer. Okay, so we are on to putting this divider in for the fuel tank little barriers. It's all this stuff here. So I'm going to try to spot weld all this together, and you can see I've gone and grinded off the paint where I'm going to spot weld. You got to have this thing absolutely clean. You can't have paint, otherwise it just won't weld properly. It won't spot weld together. So I'm going to jump inside here and let's see. These are just sitting in here for now, but I just want to get that center section spot welded on, and then we can work out the rest of it. So I'll put you guys here. Heavy piece of, you know. Now all I'm really interested in is getting this in position here. We've got to take a bit more paint off here. Even this weld through primer is no good. And out of batteries. That's alright. Okay, so that is going to live like that. And we're just just going to put a couple of clamps. Okay, let's get a couple of spot welds in here. Let's see how we go. Looks like that's worked. Takes a little bit of force to get these things to work. That's better. You really need to make sure you get a glowing red hot little thing next to it. Otherwise they won't stick. Ask how I know. Come on. There it goes. So you can see you almost get like a little bit of a, I'll just show you here, when it works properly you get that little bit of a discoloration and a little bit of a crater happening on top of them. If you don't get that, they're not going to stick, and then you're going to find the thing's just going to fall apart on you, so just be mindful of that. Sometimes you're supposed to give them a bit of a clean up the tips a little bit. No, see, that didn't stick. I just noticed that one did not stick, which is not good. I'll have to do him again. This happens sometimes, they don't. Hopefully that did that time. Yeah. So that one took a little bit longer. All good there. Let's try and do that end one now. Just trying to clean off the probe a bit. Righto, that side's done. We'll a couple more up this end here. Worked well. Got to have a glow. No, see, that one didn't stick, so got to go back over it again. Just sometimes I don't. The clamping force isn't there. Just didn't leave it on long enough. Yep, that one worked. Needed a bit of a double whammy. Now the tips need to be, you need to keep them okay, one more. Okay, we'll do the back side and then I'll bring you guys back in again. Okay, so we've got this beam pretty much welded in. I had to readjust it unfortunately because these panels here, they actually sit like so and they go like, well, pretty much like that, but unfortunately when I welded this, luckily I only tacked it in so it wasn't a big problem. I had it actually here, so it was a bit too far back and this wasn't lining up with the side piece. So anyway, it's all fixed. What we need to do now, which will be the last thing for today, is these little guys down the bottom, these little strips, which I suppose they're a lip to hold the bottom of the cover plates. They need to have a little notch on every single one of these depressions in the floor. I'll put a picture up now of what it's got to look like. Unfortunately, these ones don't come with it. So you can see where I've put those little black marks. I'll go over on the bench and we're just going to have to cut them with the grinder and bend them down with a pair of pliers. I mean, they don't have to be crazy accurate, but, you know, we're going to probably goop over the top of the whole things anyway to seal them up. So I think it's just to cover this area so that you're not getting petrol fumes inside the treasure chest area. So you really want to have this sealed up nicely. So obviously the fuel tank's going to be sitting in here. These are the mounting plates. So they've got to be plug welded into the floor for the fuel tank. So all right, we'll go and take these over and we'll start chopping, and that's going to be fun. Okay, so we've just made some very rudimentary lines, but it doesn't have to be super accurate, and I'm just going to chop these with the grinder and we'll do some fandangling. Try to keep you out of the spark zone. And now we're going to nick the back of them, and then we should be able to just snap them off with the pair of pliers. So now the ones that we're keeping are so this is what we don't want. So if we turn this over, we want to cut that, cut that, cut that, cut that, cut that. Like I said, you could spend a bit more time on this and get them super accurate, but you don't really need to, because they're going to have sealant around them, so they can be a little bit inaccurate and they'll be fine. Right. So we're just going to score those. Okay, what we do now is you can see they just snap off pretty easily. I don't think you'd be doing this with German steel. This stuff is pretty soft. Now, what has to happen now is we've got to kick each one of these down on a bit of an angle. So we're just going to use the vise, pop them in here onto the line like that, and then just give it a bit of a bendy. Okay, now we can just fine tune them over at the car. So the other one's done already, so I'll just show you over here what we've done. You can see this one in here, and you can see how those little parts now just go into their slots. That's going to get welded right there up against the side to the middle. And then the other one, which is the one we just did, let's go and pop him in and let's have a bit of a look. Yeah, look at that. Perfect. And you can see, like, that was hacking them out with a grinder, but they've all lined up pretty nicely. And that is good enough. That's all you need to do. So we're going to get those tacked in position and go from there. Then once that's done, we have just that center support just to tack in position, and then that's it. And then I don't think we're going to do any more fab in here. I think that is going to be it and then we're going to get some primer in here. Once the primer's done, then I'm just thinking if there's going to be, let's see, if we hit it all with primer, get it all one color. I want to clean up these welds around in here. They're a bit messy on those ones. I'll just clean them up a bit, and then we can get some color, which is obviously going to be the factory color inside here, and then we can start welding the top ribs in position and go from there.
A few moments later.
Okay, and a little bit of abracadabra, and we have the rest of it welded in, and yeah, she's looking pretty good. I've just put a little bit of zinc primer in a couple of spots just to stop it rusting. I haven't welded in the fuel tank mounts, only because we don't have a fuel tank yet, and I just want to make sure we're going to get it all nicely lined up with the orifice on the outside of the panel here. So we'll have to get that sorted once we get a tank. But the dividers go in no problem at all. Everything lines up, so we're happy days. So next basically now is we're going to get this thing painted inside, and then we can start putting the rest of the ribs on top here. Once that's done, then you can just seal it off. We don't have to go back inside. One of the earlier single cabs I did, I had to actually open the treasure chest and climb inside and paint it, and I tell you what, it was a very, very smelly affair, even with a respirator. So we definitely don't want to do that again. Yep. All right, well, I think that will do it for this episode, guys. Thanks again. I'm going for a surf. It's actually gone warm again, which is weird. We're coming into winter down here. And anyway, we'll catch you in another episode, and thanks again for stopping by. All right, you.